Welcome to another episode of Divorce Explained with myself, Leanne Townsend, and my colleague, Steve Benmore. We're really excited today because we have a special guest. We are joined today by Kelly Lise Murray, and we have a really interesting topic that I think is relevant to a lot of listeners, real estate and mortgage pitfalls to avoid during divorce. And Kelly is a Harvard-educated attorney. She's a fellow attorney like Steve and I, but she's on a bit of a different path. She's also a legal scholar and entrepreneur who specializes in the intersection of family wealth, real estate, and divorce litigation. After nearly 2 decades on faculty at Vanderbilt Law School, Kelly Lise has become a national educator for lawyers, judges, and financial professionals, helping them prevent costly legal disputes over property and wealth. Kelly Lise, also co-founded divorcethishouse.com and vettingthehouse.com. Training professionals across the United States on handling real estate in divorce and estate cases. Kelly also hosts the Wealth Litigated podcast, where she unpacks real-world cases involving family disputes, trusts, estates, and high-stakes divorces to extract practical lessons for clients and advisors. We're really excited to have you, so welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
So why don't we start by chatting a little bit about the type of work you're doing and how it might be relevant to our clients in the middle of divorce.
This all started for me in 2007, so it's been a very long time, and it started with a question that I didn't know the answer to. And it was simply, we're going through a divorce, we need to hire a real estate licensee to help us with our house. What should that real estate licensee know? And I didn't know. What should a real estate agent know to help someone going through a divorce? And I thought, I'll do some research. It's probably just a seminar. There is so much actually going wrong, actually litigated cases showing people making permanent financial mistakes with the house and the mortgage. And so it turned into training. And I've been training real estate agents since 2008, mortgage professionals since that same year, judges, lawyers, financial professionals, because the same topic touches those professions differently, but everyone needs a team. So my biggest takeaway is if you're going through a divorce with a house, you need a team to help you with the documents, information, and data concerning the house and the mortgage.
You know, it's funny because I think divorce is almost universal all over the world. People come together, people marry, people get divorced. And second common event is a lot of people in marriages own homes.
Yes.
So it's sort of like a double punch. You've got the marriage falling apart and they're splitting up. And then you've got this house. And for a lot of people, not only is that holding all of their wealth, it's also holding all of their stability. And so when you are servicing, whether you're a mediator, a lawyer, a judge, an assessor, an agent, a mortgage broker, whatever you're doing, you're stepping into this sort of this quagmire called divorce with a home. And you have a company called Divorce This House or Vetting the House. And so what I'd love to know from you is over the years, you must have seen some pretty bad advice or missteps taken by different professionals, which could be lawyers, could be judges or real estate professionals. What are some of the more common missteps, for lack of a better word, that you've seen?
Well, one misstep is the 12th of never. One spouse is supposed to do something. One spouse is supposed to refinance or is supposed to divest from title or is supposed to do something to transfer the house from 2 people to 1 person, but there's no actual deadline. I call that the 12th of never. So every decision with the house, keep in mind there should be an enforcement mechanism. How will I get my spouse to actually accomplish X? Before you do what you're supposed to do, they need to do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes it's the exchange of money, or even worse is giving up title to the house without anything changing on a mortgage. So that's probably the most common. People are confused between the deed and the mortgage. So who owns the house is determined by the deed, and that's recorded in the county. Well, I don't know do you have counties in Canada?
Same here.
Okay, good. I mean, we definitely are based on the English system, so I know it works the same way that way. So wherever the house is located, you go to that clerk's office, there is a deed about your house. Whoever the verb is vested in title, owns the house. Is it you and your spouse? Is it just one spouse? Is it the other? Before divesting from title, you need to make sure you are not obligated, for example, on the mortgage. So the biggest mistake I see is someone who is obligated on a mortgage and on the title. The other spouse is supposed to refinance the mortgage. Again, that 12th of never. First spouse divests from title. She's still obligated on the mortgage, and he never refinances the mortgage. Guess what? She's still on the mortgage. And she doesn't own the house. This is what's so dangerous about that. Divesting from title without the other spouse removing your obligation on the mortgage by usually successfully refinancing it, actually funds. Without that happening, causes significant problems, because if your property settlement has a 12th of never, meaning no actual enforcement mechanism, the other side hasn't done anything wrong. And I've seen actually litigated cases of people who the other side was supposed to refinance the mortgage, but there was never a deadline. And the court holds, well, he hasn't breached it because you never gave him a deadline. Got to have a deadline.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I could see how sometimes there could be maybe a lack of communication between the family law lawyer and the real estate lawyer. Because I up here, there are some lawyers who do both, but generally I know when I have a separation agreement and there's going to be a title transfer, the client has a real estate lawyer who handles that aspect of things. And of course, I'm responsible for drafting the provisions in the separation agreement and making sure there is a deadline, like you're talking about. But I could, you hand it off, and if a family law lawyer wasn't good about following up with the real estate lawyer to make sure something's done, I could see how it might fall through the cracks in terms of everything being completed and the family law lawyer not even being aware because they didn't follow up, and then the client therefore not even realizing.
One other mistake I've seen is one spouse signs the deed and no one ever records it. So one spouse is trying to divest from title. If you do not divest him from title and he gets his own liens later, my example is usually a gambling situation, but it could be medical debt or credit card debt or whatever it is. His liens can now still record against your house because you haven't removed him from title. Yeah, you don't want that after divorce. Because those would be validly recorded liens.
For sure. Yeah. Does it matter? Right now, certainly here in Toronto, and I think it's the same through, Canada and the United States right now, maybe lots of other places in the world. Our market is not doing very well. Like, prices have come down substantially since the peaks during the COVID era. And I have a number of clients who, are in situations, they're going through divorce. The matrimonial home needs to be listed and sold, but they're not very happy about the timing of all of this. Do you find in different markets, like a really hot market versus a slow market, is it more common to see mistakes made depending on the type of market, or is it really across the market?
I don't see more mistakes by market, but the trend in any market is for one spouse to want to keep the house. That feels easy and expedient and emotionally comfortable and all of that, and it's usually a mistake. What I've been teaching since 2007 is the house is one of the most dangerous assets in the entire divorce. And if one of you is going to keep it, you need a lot of legal work. You need to pay for the contingencies, these deadlines, all of that has to be checked before you agree that the other spouse or you are the one who's keeping the house. Because selling severs a lot of the problems. If you sell the house successfully, you've severed the mortgage, title has been divested because the buyer got clear title or their mortgage wouldn't have paid you. And there are no more liens that can attach because you're removed from title. So a lot of the problems are cleaned up with a sale. And that's why selling is the better option, but it's not. People have a different perspective in divorce. I need to get X out of this house. Well, the market doesn't care what anyone needs to get out of a house. So it's the trade-off is get the legal work done. If one of you is keeping it, you can make that decision, but make sure you know your net. What are you netting out of all of this? Because is this the case in Canada? In many states in the United States, cost of sale cannot be deducted unless the house is actually being sold. So if one person keeps the house, and let's say the cost of sale are going to be $60,000, keeps the house, but a year later I can't afford it, she's spending $60,000 on closing costs out of half the equity. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they had decided to sell as part of the divorce, she would have only paid $30,000 in closing costs. Mm. So it makes a difference when you decide to sell, because in the U.S. that would be speculative. You can't. The divorce court is not going to let you deduct cost of sale unless you are selling as part of the divorce.
Do you ever see situations when you're involved in helping a couple who's got a house going through a divorce where one of them just simply didn't know about the size of the mortgage or additional loans taken out against the house, and they thought they own this house and there's X dollars in equity in it, but then when they split up, they find out, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot of mortgages or there's a lot of loans against this house.
So one example is the home equity line of credit being hijacked. I had a divorce example where the wife was going to keep the property. It was a very expensive property, and they had a $100,000 home equity line of credit. And by keeping the house, that was going to be her cash access. She was working with one of my RCSD real estate agents, went through the due diligence that we recommend, and they discovered together that the home equity line of credit, the husband had withdrawn all by himself $75,000 before the bank froze it. Mm. So the interesting thing about home equity lines of credit, if activity is not
consensual,
financially positive, they can freeze your HELOC. They can stop you from withdrawing anything. They can stop it. And so she now was going to keep a house with more debt and no cash access. Mm-hmm. So the home equity line of credit, how many loans are on the house, you can find that out through the liens. You can go to the county office and find out the liens and then go to the creditor. And because it's divorce, even if you're not a borrower, through discovery, you can get that information from the other side. So divorce is the time to do all that due diligence. And really, the house is a document-intensive asset, and it is worth the effort to get all the documents and info and data first before you make any permanent decisions.
Yeah, I have a case right now where that was happening. The husband was running up the joint line of credit that's secured against the matrimonial home, and we're looking at taking it into court and having to bring an urgent motion to stop the dissipation of assets and hopefully get an order to have him return the money. But it's certainly something that comes up, unfortunately, more often than maybe we'd like. You touched upon, and I agree with you, one of the things that we see a lot is there's one party who really, really wants to stay in the matrimonial home. And ultimately, they probably can't afford it cash flow wise into the future and whatnot. But so what is your advice for somebody out there who might be listening to our podcast who is really attached to the home and would really like to stay there? But they're not sure if they can financially swing it. What do you tell that person?
Well, run the numbers, because you don't want to keep it, not sell it, and then a year or two after divorce be the only one paying those closing costs. So really look at what would closing costs be if I sell now? Well, if I don't sell now, I have 100% of those costs. And what am I paying him for his share of the equity? So now you're keeping a house, you have less of the equity, and you're 100% responsible for anything going wrong. One of the first inspections I recommend is a home inspection, because what are you keeping? What is it going to cost you? What is there a small leak that in 2 years will be a bigger leak, rotting your floor joists? That's a massive repair. Are there any cracks in the foundation? What are the warranties? How many more years do certain systems in your house still have a warranty? Because once it's out of warranty, those repairs are more expensive. So it really comes down to do the math. What will it cost you, and what extra will it cost you to keep it? Because it will cost you more to keep this house than to sell it as part of the divorce. Because not everybody has extra assets to equalize. Oh, you keep this house and I'll keep that. For many people, the house is the main valuable asset. And so for one of you to keep it causes significant changes in terms of the whole marital balance sheet. It's better to not keep it. I understand the reasons why people try to keep it, but financially, if it's a close call, really get all those numbers, because selling it as part of the divorce will cost you less and save you more in the future. Plus, it solves many of the risks of one of you keeping the house.
First of all, I have to say, after doing this for 30 years, you just said something that I never thought of before and that I've never seen happen. And that is when one spouse even considers buying the house out from the other spouse, to get a home inspection. Because if there was going to be an outside buyer, they'd get a home inspection. But yet the person living in the house, they seem to think they know this house inside and out. And they could buy the house and only a year later find out they got to spend $10,000, $20,000 fixing the roof or the HVAC.
Well, that's why when anyone's just selling a house, why does the buyer always get a home inspection? Why does the home inspection find things? So I don't care how long anyone's lived in their house, unless you've crawled in your crawl space. First of all, I wouldn't be able to open my eyes or stop screaming. But unless you've done that, you don't know the house. And it's a key data point of what it costs to keep it and whether you really even should keep it.
Mm. So let me ask you a question with respect to the non-financial elements of a divorce and a home. We have judges here in Ontario that have a very strongly held view that when a couple breaks up, particularly with children, it's better for everybody to start a new chapter of their life in a new home, which could be in the same neighborhood or somewhere else. But the idea is there really shouldn't be one person staying in the home, because then it makes the other parent sort of the secondary home, and it puts them in a weaker position for the children to want to spend time with them. And so what is common in your neck of the woods with respect to the non-financial arguments for or against the keeping or the selling of the home?
Well, a state like Rhode Island has a statute that the trial court cannot award the house to the primary residential parent without the finances being there. And it's not that Rhode Island doesn't like kids. Rhode Island gets it. If the money isn't there, no one should keep the house. So I'm of that view. If the money isn't there, I want to help them productize the house and get the emotion out of it, because we just have to do it. And I'm so sorry. There's so much emotion and all of that. I've seen the trend. I think judges, we have 50 states, so it's hard to generalize, but I do think
maybe one more
trending less into keeping one spouse in the house. I still see it, but I think it's less than it used to be. So I started this kind of research in 2007, and it was much more prevalent then. But we've managed to get the data in there, and people are making smarter financial choices because it's a financial decision first. It has to be, and that's what makes the house so dangerous. That emotional component is real, but the finances, you have to make sure the finances are there first.
So can you tell us a little bit about your companies and what does a real estate professional learn from you when they sign up for one of your programs?
So I've been teaching real estate agents and mortgage professionals since 2008. Our mortgage class started, they used to audit the realtor class, but what we teach them is based on actually litigated cases, the documents and the financial amounts that the divorcing spouses need to help give a complete case file to the lawyers. So imagine, as the lawyer or the mediator, the client, where's your closing documents? Where's your mortgage information? I have no idea. But for trained real estate agents and trained mortgage professionals, that's not a big deal. And so it's a free service to the public. It's called RCSD, Real Estate Collaboration Specialist Divorce. We have a directory on divorcethishouse.com. And we actually have professionals trained in Canada. Some of our Canada professionals are excellent. And they really come to it from a purpose of service. Information based on what actually went wrong in litigated cases to help you prevent those mistakes. Because as you know, with property settlement agreements, you can make a permanent mistake about the house really early on that you can't fix. So find all this out first. And so that's the goal. And with mortgage, no one should be agreeing to refinance if they didn't check to see if they qualify to refinance, right? So someone's keeping the house and sure, I'll refinance. Do you qualify? If it took two incomes to get that mortgage, one income is not going to refinance it. because you have to put more debt on the house. Think about it. You're adding debt to buy out the other spouse. So you need actually even more to get a mortgage.
It's a double whammy because the applicants for the house originally were two incomes for a lower price. And usually at the time of divorce, the purchase price is higher with lower income.
Right.
And
exactly.
in some cases, one of them might have a support obligation coming out of this divorce, which makes their income even lower. So there's a lot of moving parts here.
Unlikely. So in many cases, refinance is unlikely, but at many mediations, it's common. Oh, you'll keep the house and you'll agree to refinance? Great. You'll sign a quitclaim deed. Guess the only thing that happens? The divesting from title happens, but the refinance doesn't happen. And there's no deadline. Right. You know, in kind of do-it-yourself divorces, do not do it yourself with the house. Just don't.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, this has been hugely informative. I rarely learn something new after doing this for 3 decades, but my God, you just expanded my brain on the relationship between divorce and the family home. It was a pleasure meeting you. It was a pleasure hearing from you. And for those of you that don't know, Kelly Lise Murray is speaking to us from Charleston, South Carolina, which I have a very warm spot for in my heart. So Kelly Lise, thank you so much for joining us on Divorce Explained.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.